In those early years, there was maybe only 100 surfers in all of California, and they were looked on as today like a Hell's Angel. They were kind of wild and crazy, and nobody wanted their daughters to go out with a surfer. You know, they didn't dress like the rest of the people did. They didn't act like anybody else did, and they were having too much fun, and other people, I think, were really jealous. Then when I went around the world and surfed in Africa, and was gone for 3 years, and came back and showed my pictures to Hobie and Bruce Brown and other guys and said, this is where you want to go because it's fabulous beaches there. So Bruce then went off and made The Endless Summer and did what it took me 3 years to do. He did it in 2 months and followed my trip around and met and stayed with a lot of the people that I lived with on my trip. And as a result, Hobie was instrumental in suggesting to Bruce that the surfing image was so poor at that time that making this movie should make an extra effort to show surfers in a good light. So Bruce left the Los Angeles LAX in a coat and tie, and Mike Henson and Robert August were in a blue blazers and all buffed out, and that whole movie was made with the thought of upgrading the image of surfing. And it was not long after when Bruce came home and that movie was so totally successful that the rest of the world saw what surfing was all about. And I think it became right instantly getting a better image because of that movie. And so kids that got interested in surfing from the East Coast and the Midwest then saw surfers in a different light. And I think that was the beginning of changing the whole culture and image of surfing. And as I got out of school, I surfed all the time and started working with Hobie. I was patching surfboards at first, and later on he said we should go to Honolulu and open a store. So we flew to Honolulu and opened really what was later to become the first retail surfboard store where they weren't made in that store. Up until then, there were shops, but it was all where Velzy or Hobie had made them in a shop and sold them himself. This was the first retail outlet where you just had finished surfboards, and all you sold was surfboards and little resin and fiberglass, and there were no clothes in those days, and that was it. So I started that first store in Honolulu, and later opened one in Lahaina that had a dirt floor and a thatched roof, and over a period of the next 40 years opened and ran 22 surfboard stores all over Hawaii, and was on the East Coast in Florida and up and down the California coast. So it just became a way of life, and it didn't seem like work to me because I went to work barefooted in a pair of shorts and could surf during the day and met a lot of great people, and it was just a fun time. And then the museum came along later on because I acquired a lot of these old surfboards that I thought were really fabulous pieces of art, and I wanted to preserve them. I've always had an interest in history, so the foundation came along about 5 years ago when I didn't know where to store all these surfboards, and wanted to make them available to the public because by now they had become valuable, and there seemed to be a lot of interest generally in the history of not only the sport but the culture of the sport and how it evolved. In the early days they were worth absolutely nothing. Guys would say, gee, I don't want this surfboard, I'll just leave it here and maybe I'll pick it up next year when I get back from school. So they'd go off to school and just leave their boards there, and half the time I'd give them to somebody else, but whenever there was a great one I'd tend to keep it. And I wish in retrospect I'd kept another 100 of them, but unfortunately I didn't, because they were totally worthless. People would just say, take it to the dump, get rid of it. And of course now those wooden boards are worth, tens of thousands of dollars. Some of them that actually, where the history is known, and a special board that had something unique about it.